Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to the Traditions. Yeah, you weren't expecting this, were you? Hate has won. It's over. The Ascension War is over. There is no room for creativity. There's no room for hope. There's not even room for technology. The Nefandi mock all of that. They are strong in their conviction that hate has already won. At this point, all they need to do is sit back, occasionally blow on the flames if things slow down a little, but the burn has begun, and it's impossible to put it out. It's a wildfire of hate, and it is consuming the world, and it isn't even their doing. You know, I'm familiar with an ecstatic, a thoroughly intolerably optimistic young woman. She likes to tell me, hope has a chance. She tells me, equality has never been greater. Women have more chances. Gay people in certain parts of the world can get married now. They're put on equal pegging with heterosexual people. What's more, transgender people. I know lots of transgender people, and they have more rights than ever. We all have an opportunity to succeed. The world is at our fingertips, and this is where it really starts going without breathing. With the internet, we can access the entire world. We don't even need magic for it. Anyone from any class, any background can get access to a degree, can get a job, can sell things, can buy things, can meet friends, make partners, hook up with people, play games, distract themselves with any kind of media they want. Everyone has everything at any time. Right now, with the snap of their fingers, it's there. They've got it. It's done. Hope won. The Ascension War's over. We have recreated the world. We should all be ecstatic. Hallelujah. You know, I can tolerate a certain amount of time around the ecstatics. But eventually the smell of the farts that they get high on grows noxious to me. It's an acquired taste, and I haven't yet acquired a taste for it. Because everything she says is exactly the same, more or less, as what the Nefandi say for why hatred has won. They'll tell you, if they care to even explain it, and they often will in a mocking tone, yeah, hope. That's got us lots of places now, hasn't it? It's caused some fantastic division in the world. Because there's a lot of people that see hope as a scary thing. Aspiration. There's a lot of people in the world that shouldn't be aspiring. They should be content with what they have. Don't they understand that our generations, the generations that lived well before these ones, had to work so damn hard so you could have the liberties you have now? Show some goddamn gratitude instead of constantly reaching for the next big thing. Don't you see how that scares us and everyone around you when you want to change the status quo? But before they start getting locked into some consensus trap, they move on. They say, we prize the fact that hope, that aspiration, that creativity, that liberty causes division. We want society to break apart. And it isn't the fault of one administration right now, or one world leader that came in 2016, or a Brexit-like event that's caused division. Yes, those things are great, and we didn't have to do anything about them. What we prize is the division. Because we are like mold, black mold. And like black mold, we grow in those cracks in the foundations of societies, and we will help loosen those cracks, make them wider and wider, take advantage of that moist substance we call earth and culture, and we blossom while the world crumbles around us. So in the end, the only thing left growing is rot. Because divisions don't get healed in the world. Not really. There's always lasting enmity, cultural clash, religions that hate each other, countries that claim territorial primacy over another. That's all division. And that internet that your ecstatic friend likes to talk about, spooge all over her desk about, this is the perfect font of division, of hatred, Because that lunatic that used to sit at the end of the bar in the local boozer and complain about all the foreigners coming over here, taking jobs, the reason we should build a wall or start shooting boats down in the sea so that they can't get to our precious ideal of a town. In the olden days, that person would have been talked down, laughed at, maybe even thrown out for bringing down the mood. Well, let's say he is. Let's say he goes home and he goes onto his precious social media or his rolling news website, even checks his phone to do so. There doesn't need to be a big group there. There doesn't need to be tens of thousands. There needs to be 5,000, 6,000 of people that share his view. Some of them could even be bots. He goes in there, he shares the views he was mocked for in the local pub, and now he's being told, you're right. They can't see it, but you're right. We validate you with our likes, with our hearts, with our laughing faces when you talk about how you owned the libs the other day. All of a sudden, this person has a community, and because he has left that group that so mercilessly mocked him, the division is slightly wider. Now, you ask me, and I say, well, that community isn't bound to look after this person, but if we want a chance to fight against Ascension, we need to educate him. We need to give him the opportunity to see what is good about unity, about the possibility of coming together and making the world a better place. But that's not what the Nefandi are interested in. Of course not, and there's no point preaching to them. They already have their own gospel, and they're very keen on following it. Their intent is to ruin the world, and some claim they wish to remake it in a better form once that's done, but others are perfectly content to just ruin the world. They are committed to the task. There is something in their avatar, something in their minds, indeed, that tells them this is the only thing that matters. But the Nefandi don't need to be there to put these politicians in place to encourage the raging xenophobe or to abuse kids or to murder people in dark alleys. The Nefandi don't need to do that because humanity's doing it all by itself, and it isn't the fault of the internet, it isn't the fault of social media, it's not the fault of rolling 24-hour news or doom scrolling or bad education in our classrooms of a particularly tyrannical president or prime minister, of COVID, or indeed anything else. No, this is just the way humanity is. The Ascension War has been won for many hundreds of years. There was never an opportunity to turn the nose up on this descent into the mountainside. It's just speeding up a little now that we can all see each other for the monsters we are. So the Nefandi believe they've already won. But this is a different kind of belief than the Black Spiral dancers, for example, who believe the same thing. You see, the Nefandi are fighting a war not just for the sake of the world, or its ruin, or indeed that of humanity, but also magic. They see the way the traditions and the technocracy, for that matter, use magic, hell, even marauders, and that is what they dislike most of all. Because they realise that the mages of the traditions, as an example, are about the only creatures out there that might be able to, if not pull that nose up on the fast about to crash jet, at least deploy oxygen masks, maybe save a few people from the crash. And so they go to work. I encountered a Hermetic, one day, a fine man, I know that's a rarity for a Hermetic, who decided he would go to one of the current war zones. And he's been around in many places with his circle of mages. He's been to Ukraine, to Gaza, to Sudan, most recently. Oh, and the Nefandi love everything going on there. They're not responsible for it. I would never be so reductive as to claim it, and I don't think they would claim it either. But they are happy to enjoy it, and they're happy to encourage it. And when this Hermetic friend of mine went to one of these war zones with a van full of first aid supplies and started handing them out, well, it was with the best of intentions. But you know what the Nefandi did? In the background, the local Nefandi, they made sure those first aid supplies got in the hands of warlords. They made sure those first aid supplies ended up on the black market and sold instead of given away. Made sure that they only ended up in the hands of the people who didn't need them quite as much as the poor and the dying. And so, our Hermetic, not to be defeated, started using magic to make people's lives better. Maybe help a waterway run there, reconnect some power, utility magic, things that wouldn't offend the nature of paradox. Well, in that case, the Nefandi started corrupting the effect, started amplifying it. What happens if this freshwater stream becomes a flood now? What happens if we add some dysentery to the water supply? What happens if we, for instance, make an overload of that junction box and set fire to this favela? That kind of thing. The Hermetic realized that in a war zone, he is outmatched. He realized that the Nefandi can pull on all of the levers of chaos, of misrule, of hatred, and that in such straits, people are more inclined to fear, to reaction, than they are to think through what could be the cause of such things. He was the person that came to me and said, suffer not a Nefandus to exist, not even to live, to exist. If you encounter a Nefandus, just destroy them. You wouldn't tolerate poison in your bloodstream if you had the opportunity to extract it, so you shouldn't tolerate a Nefandus in your community. It's the old thing about, well, you let one Nazi in your bar, it will soon become a Nazi bar. And that's not to say all Nefandi are Nazis. I think they probably look down on fascism and National Socialism and say, well, that's a pretty lukewarm thing compared to what we have planned. But certain of them can hide within the ranks of such people, because anyone that spreads fear and dissent while preaching things like patriotism, solidarity, totalitarianism, easy for me to say, and all while looking for the big enemy, that's Nefandi rule number one. Find the perfect cover. You don't even have to steer the group at that point. You can just enjoy it. And the Nefandi do enjoy it. I knew a Barabbas once who grew so engorged by the shame and sorrow of his victims that he no longer wanted for sex. What he would do, like any bully, is look for a reaction. He would go to someone, and he would say something mean. This is how he started. He would be a bully. He would say something mean. He'd criticize their appearance or their work or just something trivial in the great scheme of things. And he would wait for a response. If that person looked ashamed, if that person looked sad, if that person looked afraid, well, he had two options there. Sit back and exult in his hard-on, or push a little harder. It had one minor bump. Let's see whether he'd go for the full hit. And so he'd start picking apart at them in a way that sounded constructive, but was in fact deeply ruinous to that individual. I mentioned the internet before. The Nefandis see a great advantage to the anonymity that something like the internet provides. Now they're not putting themselves at the risk. They can hide behind walls of sock puppets and indeed followers who are more than happy to do the same thing. And all of it without magic. Because all Nefandi ultimately want the same thing. They want the ruin of the world. They just have different ways of going about it. Some are going to offer to sell their souls to infernal masters, all to assist in the ruin of the world. Others are trying to serve the worm of the Garou mythos, and therefore the consumption ultimately of the world after Gaia is destroyed. Others serve more alien entities, these outer lords, and they believe that these aliens will remake the world. Whether the Nefandi are on top or not doesn't matter, because this is what they are destined to do. And so they all have their own schemes, and they all have their own ways of going about pursuing them, but in the end their objective is the same: ruination. And they can do that by harassing people on the internet. They can do it by swatting people, by insulting them, by even cancelling or blocking someone is a good tactic for a Nefandus. And again, no magic required. But when they do use magic for these ends, they do it subtly. It's a mistake to assume that all Nefandi are going around setting off fireballs, exploding cities, and fomenting war. While some may do that, those ones aren't the ones you need to worry about long term. They'll be dealt with. It's the ones who tweak things just so to make life as miserable as possible for those who are the champions of hope and possibility. I know, for example, a rather significant and untouchable pop star right now is a Nefandus, an actual Nefandus. She was born a Widaslanti. She was not a corrupted mage like Barabbas, who entered their call, was shown the dark reality of the world and emerged in Nefandus. No, this Widaslanti was born with their avatar twisted, born evil, to put it mildly. But she is very popular because she can use things like parasocial relationships. She can use obsessions. She can manipulate an army of fanatics to do what she wants. And what's more, she can come out of it gleaming like gold. To give you an example, there was a recent concert she was at where she just offered a wink to the audience. And she had already coded in many of their minds, dog whistled if you like, that when she winks, that's when you need to rush for the stage because she will reach down and touch your hand like a king of old and heal you of your disease. She doesn't put it like that, but the possibility of touching her painted fingernails. Oh, can you imagine getting a little bit of her sweat on your hand? You'd never wash that hand. Well, from the back row came the charge, a march of footfalls, eager fans who had paid top dollar to sit miles away where they could barely see the girl prancing around on stage to her lukewarm, pasty white music, and they charged ahead. You know, the front row of a lot of these concerts is often where the people with disabilities are situated, and she's always been very keen to ensure that people with disabilities get the best seats in the house. She's a wonderful charity worker. They were given no forewarning that this stampede would occur, and there was no exit for them either. Bodies marched and mulched into tangled metal and rubber. Wheelchairs crumpled and crushed. Yes, of course, some people were aware of what they were doing, but once the wave started moving forward, there was no stopping it. You can't fight against something like that. All you can do is hope you can climb on stage. Maybe you'll save your life. Maybe you'll be able to reach down and save someone else, but maybe you'll get even closer to her. Of course, she was very sorrowful. She said that she wouldn't perform the next scheduled concert. This led to much wailing and gnashing of teeth. Some young girls even killed themselves over it. And she said that, how could something like this happen? I don't know why the arena wouldn't have unlocked those fire exits to allow those poor people to escape. Those of them that survived, they are invited not only to come to my next concert for free, but they can come backstage and meet me personally, and all of a sudden all is forgiven. She then reminds you that her next album is on sale in 2 weeks' time. Don't miss it. There may even be the chance that she signed some of them if you're still a fan of physical media. She's very big in vinyl. And Nefandus can therefore be obnoxiously pronounced. They don't need to be subtle, but they also don't need to be overtly destructive. I could say the same for any tradition, mind you. A mage can be as subtle, as coincidental, or as overt and paradoxical and vulgar as they wish. And all she needed to do was seed in a little enchantment into her singing. Oh, the ecstatics hated that. They like to believe that they have a almost dominion over the magical power of music. But anyone can charm a crowd with their song, and that charm can become infectious. The subtlest of magics, and an Nefandus can have you playing like putty in their hand. So suffer not an Nefandus to exist. That's what we're told. You know, I know of several Nefandi who would love nothing more than to be destroyed, by more respectable mages. They have an opinion, you see. They believe their lives don't amount to much. Ultimately, they're all extensions of the end. Some believe they are the tendrils of the Outer Lords or the Worm, but they believe they are all tools, and it is their job to be worked until they lose their edge. And so, these Nefandi, they welcome the possibility of destruction, not because they want to die, but because they want you to be seen for the hypocrite you are. They will preach about the paradox of intolerance. They will say, you're saying I'm intolerant, and yet you want me dead? Look, they gesture to all of your peers. Look at how hypocritical this person is. They're no hero. They wish to have you under their yoke. Oh, they love that. They want you seen as a criminal. They want you to lose your reputation. They want to pull you closer and closer to your own call so that with their death, you're a few steps closer to becoming an Nefandus yourself. That Hermetic who heads out to war zones, you have no idea how much that destroyed him to see all of his good works to nothing, brought to nothing. Hope? It's an illusion. Chance is just a roll of the dice. Doom is guaranteed. The Nefandi have guaranteed it. They want you to fall, even if it means they fall with you, because they know the way the Ascension War is going, and it's down. There's no pulling the nose up on this one.